Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Interview. My guest this week is an ex-international footballer, an administrator and also a politician. You'll be meeting my guest after this time out. I am Azizat Olaoluwa. Stay with us. I will be right back. Welcome back. My guest today was known for his dazzling sprint and precise style of play on the football pitch. He was part of the Green Eagles team that won the first trophy of the African Cup of Nations for Nigeria in 1980. I am talking about Patrick Segun Odegbami, popularly called Mathematical. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
First off, happy belated birthday. You clocked 66, but yet you still look quite young.
Wow.
What's the secret?
I don't know. I think it's, I don't think I look that young anyway, but we give thanks to God. It's a reflection of my background in sports. Yeah. I still do a lot of sports. I live healthily, I eat well, and I don't have too much stress.
So how was growing up like for you?
I was born in Lagos. But I left at a very early age to join my parents in Jos. Okay. And lived the first 17 years of my life in Jos. The first 4 were actually in the sand dunes of the Sahara Desert. I was accompanying my mother, who was trading at the time, and she was going once a week, once a month. The trip itself was a week. Okay. To go to Fort Lami and those areas in the desert in northern Nigeria. And she traded with Fulani traders. As I said, 17 years of my early life in Jos. I went to Catholic primary and secondary schools that had a predominance of Igbo students. So I could speak the language, I could speak Igbo, I could speak Hausa. Wow. And of the 3 languages, the Yoruba was actually the weakest. When I left Jos at 17, I went to Ibadan. I was actually going to UI to do my prelims, but branched along the way to go and study mechanical engineering at the Polytechnic for some technical reasons that, of course, some people know. My life is an open book. I spent the next 6 years at the Polytechnic, 2 in the Polytechnic for the OND, 2 more for the HND. I did my youth service in Ibadan and then in Lagos. Worked briefly for WNTV, WNBS, for Western Nigeria Investment Credit Corporation, for Housing Corporation. Wow. Got appointment to work with Abiola's ITT, and then finally settled for Sonny Obasu Ojiagbase. In 1986, where I started my career in the media. And I finally went into education.
Okay, were you an adventurous child growing up? How fun was it for you?
Yes, I was, because I grew up in that kind of an environment where you had, everybody was in Jos. You know, playing pranks came from an environment that had very few cars. There were very, very few cars in Jos. The streets were big and wide, no television, no radio, you know, so the only things you could do were outdoor, running and playing truancy. So I did a lot of that. Ah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your immediate family, marriage, children.
Well, Nigerians know my life. I got married a long time ago in 1978. But I was a young man, and I was probably the most famous footballer in the whole of the country. That wasn't a difficult, an easy life for any young man who just came out of school, very popular, a bit wealthy, and you know, that kind of stuff. So we misbehaved a lot here and there. You know, I couldn't manage it as well as I should. So I don't have the kind of perfect family relationship that I would have wanted, because my children grew away from me. They left for the UK when they were all very young, and they are still there till now, from 1986 till now.
Wow.
So I did not have the opportunity of that kind of closeness with a family. So that has affected bits and pieces here. But then, God has given me the most beautiful children in the world. They are all doing very, very well. And I still have a young family now again, with a boy called Tito, who is an angel and a terrorist. So he has made me not to miss too much, you know, that kind of family life. So that's where I am now.
Do you drink alcohol?
I take my small bottle of Guinness occasionally. Occasionally, yeah. So I drink alcohol.
And what is your favorite meal?
I grew up in Jos. I like a lot of potatoes. I eat guinea fowl, a lot of guinea fowl. I do a lot of fish. I live healthily as best as I can. I eat a lot of grilled food, fish, guinea fowl, potatoes, then you have me.
Where is your favorite holiday destination?
Do I holiday? My life is a holiday. My whole life is a holiday. I don't have one favorite spot, but I think the most beautiful place in the world to live outside of Nigeria is London, the city of London.
Really?
I love it. I think it captures the totality of Western civilization, plus its acceptability of the rest of the world congregating in one city. Everything is in London.
Do you listen to music? And if yes, who is your favorite musician?
No, I don't. I listen to music generally.
Okay.
I listen to music. My children are music inclined. I have a son who is a sound engineer. I have a daughter who is a performer. She's an artist. She's a singer. I have another daughter who is into making up women and all of that. You know, they call them cosmetologists. You know, and I have another son, which my sister's son. I call them my children. He is into editing and filming and cameramanship and that kind of a thing. So we are art inclined in the entire family. So music is a part of it. And a lot of my friends are musicians. So I love music generally. I'm a fan of jazz. I'm a fan of hip hop. I'm a fan of Afrobeat, because my daughter plays Afrobeat. I like old music, high life music, Ambrose Campbell, that kind of music.
So would you like to sing a song for us?
Easy motion tourist, Abba tourist kelele, Kamajiya kalolaye. I like that kind of music. That's Ambrose Campbell.
Okay. So how do you relax? Because you sound like a very busy person. So how do you let your head down and just take a breather?
My work is my passion, because it derives from my sporting side. The sporting side of my life is actually my work. I was a football player. I became an agent of sports. I managed athletes before. I'm into the media related to sports. I'm into education related to sports. I'm into consultancy related to sports. Now I'm going into politics related to sports. So it's all about sport. And sports is fun. I really don't work. It is all fun. I derive fun from all the things that I do. Okay.
Which is the most memorable moment for you in life that you still hold?
In the whole of my life? That's hard to know. But the one that is related to the public, that I can never forget. One is the night we won the Africa Cup of Nations. That was the first time Nigeria would be winning it. And we won it in Lagos. And Nigeria was football crazy at the time. But for me, the greatest was on the day when we played, it was football related too. We played the finals of the FA Cup in the morning in Lagos, here in Lagos also. And we won the game. After we won that game, from the field of play, I was lifted high up in the air by spectators, and they took off everything off me. My jersey, my shoes, my socks.
Oh my gosh.
The only thing they left with me were the pants I was wearing. And they carried me all the way from the National Stadium into a waiting car of a friend.
Wow.
And they would not allow the guy to even start the car. They pushed the car from the National Stadium to Sam Shonibare in Surulere,
Wow.
walking down the road with hundreds of supporters following that car. They wouldn't allow him start the car, and they pushed that car through the streets of Lagos to Sam Shonibare. And I was there sitting in the car. It was hot, and people were coming out of their homes everywhere, and the noise was everywhere, mathematical. And I was just there. And I could not believe it, because it was the closest thing to heaven to see people, you know, adore you that much over a very simple game like football. That was a day I will never forget.
And any lowest moment?
Worst moment? Yes. Also related to football. It's in 1984. That was the last match I played in my life. After that match, it was so painful. I have not stepped on the football field for any major competition again since then. That match was that painful. It was a match we should have won. It was a match that could have fetched Nigeria the first Champions Club Cup in 1984. It was the match that if we had won, I would have been declared Africa's best player. So it was a match that meant so much, but then we just messed it up. We totally messed it up for the wrong reasons. It wasn't the performance on the field of play. It was the dependence of our people on the supernatural for them to win a physical match. It was a physical match we should just have gone to play. But they consulted with everybody, everything, every being, you know, and all of that, made sacrifices, and those things were very visible. You know, even on radio, they were incantations, reciting incantations. So the glory would have gone to everything else, but he who deserves glory, to God, if we had won that match. Some of us would have been worshiping in the homes of certain things, believing that those things are so powerful when they are not. So we lost in that manner. We lost all the opportunities that that match could have fetched us. As an individual, I lost, and I never stepped on the football field again.
So it was basically what forced you out of national football?
I stopped football as a whole, outrightly. From that moment, that was the end. Wow. It was that bad, yes.
Now, at what point were you given the nickname Mathematical?
Well, you know, I was just playing, and I got to know about it outside of playing. It wasn't as if I was called Mathematical on the field. A radio commentator, Ernest Okonkwo, was the one who, on his radio commentaries, gave all of us, he was absolutely brilliant as a commentator, and he gave all of us names, nicknames. And it is those who were at home that enjoyed, you know, all the adjectives and descriptions and superlative words and all of that that he used. You see, so they knew before even we got to know that I was mathematical. And that name has stuck. It is only recently that Uncle Jibade Fashina Thomas wrote on his Facebook page why Ernest Okonkwo named me Mathematical. I didn't know exactly why, either because I studied engineering, or because of the precision of my play on the sidelines, or because I scored many goals, or because of my passes. For whatever reasons, I didn't know until Uncle Jibade summed it all up in his words in Facebook. And that's when I got to know recently.
Which was?
It's an accumulation of everything.
All right, I have some more questions for you, but we just have to go on a short break at this point. Stay with us on the show. My guest is Patrick Segun Odegbami, the mathematical one. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My guest is still Patrick Olusegun Odegbami, one of the best African and Nigerian footballers of all time. Thank you for staying with us on the show.
Thank you.
How did it feel winning the Nations Cup for the first time for Nigeria?
Words cannot describe. It was something we worked hard for. It was something we eventually believed we could do, even though we knew that the challenges were going to be enormous. But more than anything else, I think it was the Nigerian people, their expectations, the level of their support that fired us up, to win on that day. And that made winning so very, very significant, not just to us as individual players, but to the entire country as a whole. That was going to be our major achievement in sports as a country. We should have achieved in 1976, but we boycotted the Olympics when we had a very fantastic team. I was part of those that were sacrificed for my brothers and sisters in South Africa for the sake of apartheid. We abandoned the Olympic Games on the eve of the Olympics itself, after 4 years of training. To imagine that you lost all of that. So 1980 was like a crowning moment for Nigeria, the Nigerian people, football followers, and us as players. And so it was just out of this world.
How do you feel about the present crop of Super Eagles?
Oh, it's another world entirely. The world has changed since the time we played. We just played football because we loved it. It was more for self, for country, and not for money. But these days, you cannot help but play for the money, because there's too much money in football at the moment.
True.
And when you hear the kind of monies that they earn, you just collapse.
I'm sure
you just collapse.
I'm sure sometimes you wish you were playing at this time.
This is what motivates them now. Is different from what motivated us then. When we got a car, the gift of a Volkswagen car, that's less than 3,000 naira, Volkswagen car. It was like they gave us the moon. In fact, within a couple of months, several of the boys had crashed the car out of the excitement of even just getting cars. So it's a totally different world. I wish I grew up in this age and time. You wouldn't have come to this poor environment to come and interview me. You would interview me in my jet liner somewhere.
Don't let me say anything. Don't let me comment on where we are right now.
But yeah, the world is a different place. Our boys are global superstars,
Are you impressed with the way local football is being run in Nigeria?
Football in Nigeria is a reflection of the country itself. You cannot isolate the game from the rest of the polity. What affects the country affects our football. The only difference is that our players demonstrate our potentialities all the time. Even when things are hard, the system is disjointed and dysfunctional, and the structures are not in place and all of that, our boys somehow, from time to time, still show us glimpses of our greatest potential, that we could be the best in the world. So it is not isolated from the rest of what is going on in the country. When the country becomes a good place to live in, when the country becomes the greatest country it can be in the world, our sports across the spectrum, in all sports, will just tag along and become very, very great itself.
All right, how did you feel in 2015 when you didn't get the required support to run for the FIFA presidency?
Disappointed. Completely disappointed. Again, because it just shows the short-sightedness of all of us about the power of sports to change society. Nelson Mandela was not flippant. He's not a flippant person when he said that sport has the power to change the world. He wasn't flippant. He knew what he was talking, because he saw what the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair saw, what Bill Clinton saw, what a few other people have seen in what sport can do to a society, to a country, to a people, to the world itself. It's so hurtful that in 2015, 2016, when I wanted to contest for the presidency of FIFA, it wasn't just to go and be president of FIFA. It was such that we were going to use the presidency of FIFA to drive development, not just in Nigeria, but in the whole of Africa, to drive an agenda for the black race in the world through the position of FIFA, to reposition Africa in the eyes of the rest of the world through FIFA.
Okay, now, are you impressed in any way or, or disappointed in any way that ex-sportsmen and women are somehow not given attention or taken care of by the government?
Of course, of course. You know, our history is littered with the stories, very sad stories, of retired sports people, people who stopped playing or stopped running or stopped jumping or doing one thing or the other in sports at a very young age. We retire in sports at very young ages. We spent the most productive parts of our youth in sport. And because of the level of emotion and passion and physical hard work that sports take, you don't have time to concentrate on supporting your sports with something else you can depend on for the rest of your life. So we have this litany of retired sports people, many of them, not all, there are some that manage to combine, who don't train for something else after sports. So it's been a horrible experience for a lot of our retired sports people. And unfortunately, the system, Nigeria, did not put in place a system that can help through the difficult years, particularly after sports, for retired people. I hope that I will be able to do something now, not just say it. We've been saying it for so long. But I hope I'll be able to do something going forward. What I tried to do was my school, which I created as a model so that people can see the possibility. It's not just talking about it. It is actually seeing it done. It can happen. It is done. This is the result. All right. That's why I set out to set up a school. And the results have been phenomenal. The last exams that we did, the WAEC and SAT exams, of the 14, because it's a very small school, 20 did WAEC, but 6 came from outside to do it. 14 in my school that did WAEC, 14. Before the last day of their WAEC, they had finished their SAT scholastic aptitude test. Before the last day of their WAEC, 10 of them had full scholarships in American universities. Wow. A few of them have gone. And these were first-class students, first-class football players. That is the perfect combination. That is paradise. So that's why the school was set up. And I hope people would see that it is possible. State governments, local governments, individuals, take up that kind of a model and establish all over the country so that our young ones who have a passion for sports can also have an opportunity for education and combine the two.
All right, finally now, the news is already out there that you want to contest for the governorship seat in Ogun State. Why the interest?
Well, the country is not how it should be. And you cannot isolate my state from it. So my state also is going through its own challenges. And people have been trying their best. Nobody goes into government without the intention to do well, depending on their vision of what they should do whilst in government. But the result is what we are all witnesses to. We are all living witnesses to the state of the country. And I am a witness to the state of my own state, despite the tremendous work that the present governor and even the governors before him, Benga Daniel and the rest of them, had done in that state. But that state should not still be where it is today. That state, in my vision, should be a model state because it has the resources, just as Nigeria has its resources. It has the human capacity, just as Nigeria has the human capacity. It has the deep, rich traditions and culture and people and an environment that is perfect for us to take off and become one of the greatest communities in the world. That's what we should be aiming for. The children are great in the world. Wole Soyinka, Olusegun Obasanjo, Fela Anikulapo Kuti, Hubert Ogunde, the children are everywhere as individuals. But as a community, we haven't harnessed those gifts that we have in that state to the best of our ability so that it can now project beyond any other state in Nigeria and become a model for the rest of the country to follow and emulate. And we have a beautiful and a great country that would fulfill the dreams of the founding fathers of African politics. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Awolowo, Azikiwe, Sadana of Sokoto, all of those people had great dreams for this country and this continent. Their dreams have been truncated by politics over the years, by the infection, corruption that has eaten too deep into the system, that has stopped all good intentions from actualization. So we need to do something different. So that's why I am in politics. Okay. I don't have structures, I don't have Godfather, I don't have the money that people have to do it, I don't have followership, I don't have anything. I don't even have a big political base. I don't have APC or PDP. So, but what I have, the people. My own idea is, let us focus on the people now. Let us use the gifts of the people. Let us lift them from where they are. Give them the opportunities that they deserve. Empower them. Enrich them. Let productivity pick up. And they will develop the state and develop the country. And we are going to have that country of our dreams from Ogun State.
Thank you very much for your time on the show. Thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
And that's our show for this week. My guest was Patrick Olusegun Odegbami, ex-football international and one of the best Nigerian and African footballers of all time. For inquiries, send all of them to the Sunday interview at cbcnews.tv. Until I come your way next time, I am Azizat Olaoluwa. Bye for now.